Good morning. So how was your week? We haven't met for 2 weeks. 2 weeks or 1 week? This is the second week, yeah. So, any opportunity to apply, to practice? Anybody want to share? So we have you are new here, are you?
I'm new here. I went to like webcam teaching.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you know the what is drill? You know the drill. So we start with sharing our experience, how you applied the teachings that you have heard the week before. So we always start with sharing session. So you know whether there were any occasion where you are able to apply what you have heard. So that way I believe that everybody benefits. So that's what we are trying to do.
Well, that sounds like a great way to get back into students, honestly.
Okay. So anybody? Sure.
I was out in California last week and was staying with a very dear friend, long-time Dharma student. And so when I lived in California, we went to lots of classes together, did lots of studies together. But he's older, in his late 70s, and has been sick, and I didn't realize how sick out there. And so it's a good lesson for me in how quickly things can change.
Yeah.
He's partly retired, who's been having lots of time to practice. He actually teaches sometimes in centers, and just, like that, within the last few months, he doesn't have energy to do practice. He's just in a lot of pain, and so it's just a very good lesson in how quickly things can change. And I know for myself, even though intellectually I know, the things can change when you see it with someone that close. It was a good lesson.
Okay. Thank you. So this theme keeps coming up in our discussion. This is very good, because at least now you are able to realize. Earlier, when we have no understanding of impermanence, how important that is. So whenever we come across or encounter this kind of a very stark evidence of impermanence, to us there's no significance. But now that when you see this often, when you realize this often, so I would say that is mark of great improvement, great progress. So you're able to relate this is impermanence. But that should eventually engender a very strong sense of strong determination to practice. That's the whole purpose in Buddhist practice, where we spend so much time contemplating and meditating on the impermanence nature of things. So through these contemplations, so it will navigate our actions towards doing something meaningful, something worthwhile. So that is the whole purpose. So every time we encounter this kind of impermanence, we should say, okay, this is it. I must do, I must practice.
Rinpoche also wanted to mention that the same friend is the one that offered the stupa for the altar.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Anyone? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
some of you know that I've had some health issues this spring. Last week, this past week, for recheck and retest and so forth, and I was kind of scared. And then the results were good, and I was feeling okay. And then I find out that my car, my old car,
Mm-hmm.
gonna need the engine rebuilt so it can continue one way or another. And of course, I'd rather the engine go than my body. So hey, this is okay. But again, it's a constant reminder. That's the first thing I want to say. The second is that I like to read ahead, and I've been reading The Will of Sharp Weapons. And it's a refrain. It repeats, and it's going to be easy to remember. And one of the things that came when I had different things I had to wait for a long time for lots of it. And, the patience was, and why do I have to, blah, 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 and all of that. And that was coming in, and it was like, this is the weapons that are coming back at you. So here's your chance, don't miss it. But it's going to be, it's a difficult thing, but that's already just kind of coming in.
Yeah. So this is this teaching or this text, I think it's very, very relevant. Very, very relevant, because we are all the time bombarded with all kinds of challenges. So this is actually a way to deal. Of course, we will talk later, but this is really for advanced level. If you are a newcomer to Buddhism, it is very hard to digest, to accept. But once you have a good foundation, especially once you have a good foundation in how cause and effect, how karma works, then this is very good, very relevant. Otherwise, it's a bit scary. Yeah. So we will talk more on this later. Yes, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was going to talk about some experiences of rejoicing. Yesterday, in the fall, I lead a ski training workout, dryland training, and it's 2 hours of hill work, intervals, and it's a very hard workout. And there's people that come year after year, and some of them are getting older. There's one woman who, I think she's in her early 70s, and she works really hard. And it just, you can see by the end of the morning, they're all tired, and they're working hard, and they're happy. They're happy to be there. They're happy to work so hard. It just feels good for them to get in shape and get healthy. And so the first part of it is that I was rejoicing for them. That year after year, they come back and they enjoy this workout. They enjoy doing this. And at the same time we were doing this workout on a different part of the hill, there was a small group led by a world-class skier named Caitlin Gregg, and they were doing ski bounding. And you could see along this ridgeline them ski bounding up this hill, and she was just astounding, and she was working to the maximum and laughing and shouting and enjoying. She was just joyous, and it just made me so happy to see somebody who's so gifted and working so hard to perfect what she does well. It just really made me happy to see that. So rejoicing was my day yesterday.
Okay, that's good. Yes, please.
Since I was gone for 6 weeks trip to India, what I realized mostly is how grateful we are here having all the facilities and people in other developing countries. They don't have enough water. They have to wait for lines. So the grateful that we are here reminds me. And also I went to a nomadic life, went to a mountain him, and the people there have no worry about stock market, no worry about war. Just they all live little and very close to the animal and the nature, and they seem very, though they have very limited amenities, but they are very happy. So there are so much difference of, and also the most of the time it keeps reminding me about the interdependence. It was so I didn't have any problem because of all the help from the airline, from the crew, and from the passenger as well. Even in the airplane, I was thinking about that. The other passengers. Because of them, I was able to fly. So because of the interdependence of everything, that keeps me thinking about it. Because of the airplane or
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. If you go to these remote places, even though they have very little in terms of resources, they don't have air conditioning, they don't have heater in their house. Everything is very limited, very scarce. But people seems happy. So this suggests that happiness is not dependent on external things. It is really dependent on your attitude, your mind. So if you are able to frame or set your mind in a certain way, no matter where you are, no matter how little you have, you can still be happy. So most of the time, we have this misconception. In order to be happy, we need to have a lot of external things. We need to fix external conditions. We need to have money. We need to be famous. We need to be praised. That's why we chase after all this. Our pursuit, most of the time, is after all these things, because there is this assumption that all this will change our life. All this will prevent any suffering, any undesirable things, and it will make us happy all the time. But time and again, we learn that that is not the case, isn't it? But have we learned enough? Have we learned our lessons? So I wanted to start this talk by asking the same question that which I asked before. Why are you here? Why are we here? What are you doing here? It's Sunday, you know. Sunday is your off day. But why are we here? Seriously, we have to ask that question. What are we trying to achieve? What is our goal? What is the purpose of our life? From the Buddhist perspective, this is not the first time we are born in this existence or in this human world. We have taken so many lives, countless lives in the past. We have experienced all kinds of lives, happy, unhappy, sad. We have experienced being a great leader. We have experienced the most wealthy person. We have also experienced the most poorest person. All that. But then, and during all those lifetimes, during all those lives, we have tried our best to solve the problems. We have tried our best to find a solution. And we are still doing it, even this life. And in a way, those who are here, I think it's in a different level, I would say. The rest, there are millions of people outside. They are still pursuing something else, thinking that that will solve our problem, thinking that whatever they are pursuing are the solutions to their problem. But we know very well from our own experience that that is not the case. So when we really ask ourselves why we are here, what is our goal, what do we want, it's all, I think, boils down to this fundamental aspiration to be happy, to avoid suffering and pain. And with that in mind, we have engaged and tried all sorts of things. And finally it dawned upon us that all these are not going to produce results. And especially wealth, money. The research also shows that it does not. Whether research shows or not, from the logical reasoning, using our own logic, we can understand that that doesn't work. Because we have something called greed. As long as greed is within us, the desire has no limit. The more you get, the more you want. First we aspire for a car when you don't have car at all. You will think that I will be so happy if I get a second-hand car. Once you got that, you are happy for a while, and then you started to seeing faults. And then you wanted a new car, a better one. Then you will work towards it. Once you get that, you will be happy for a while, and then you will aim for another one. So that applies to everything, from house to from whatever, all these things. So because of that tendency, that as long as there is this greed, there is no limit to our desire. There is no time where we say that we have enough. Unless and until we have this mindset, what is called contentment, we will never be happy. Do you think that, the billionaires, they are happier than us? We don't know. And I mentioned earlier, when all this, remember recent the trade war going on, I could sleep so soundly. No matter whether that was the Dow, is it? Yeah. Goes down or up, I could sleep so well. It doesn't bother me at all. But I doubt the millionaires and billionaires. The same with them. They may be waking up in the middle of night and calling their agents all this to sell or buy things. So this shows that, you see, it's not about money. And then fame, power. Recently I mentioned during my talk at the community hall, look at the president. He is the most powerful person in the world, American president. But do you think he's happy? It is hard to say. If power guarantees happiness, then all the leaders, especially the leader of America, should be happy all the time. But it's not. Fame, same. How many famous people, how many celebrities commit suicide? They don't commit suicide because they are happy. They commit suicide because they are unhappy. They couldn't bear it anymore. So fame does not buy happiness. So what is the one thing that guarantees happiness? After all, we are chasing happiness. So Buddha has answered. Buddha said that it is your mind. Tame your mind. Completely tame your mind. So when Buddha first taught the teaching, Four Noble Truths, there are Four Noble Truths. So it is explained in a very, very clear way. There is nothing clearer than to teach that way. So he gave an example of a sick person. So we are a sick person. So when we are sick, we need to go and see a doctor. And the doctor, after examining our symptoms and all that, doctors would make a diagnosis and then prescribe medicines. And then, there is chance of healing, of recovery. So likewise, Buddha has already told, first to identify our symptoms. That's the first Four Noble Truths. Identify, recognize what are the sufferings. Suffering, we all can understand it as suffering. But most of the time, many people do not understand the second type of suffering, the suffering of change. All these sensorial pleasures, all these worldly pleasures, many people mistook as happiness, as pleasure, and then pursue that. But that is actually a nature, in a suffering nature, because it changes, it doesn't remain. The more you experience it, the more it becomes suffering. And then, of course, pervasive suffering. Many people don't understand that. So that's why the first noble truth is to understand or identify or recognize the suffering. So once you're able to identify the suffering, only then this thought of eliminating that suffering. But if we don't know that we have an illness, then this thought of going to see a doctor and curing ourselves of that sickness will never arise. So that's why it is so important to first identify and recognize the sufferings that we are experiencing. And then, once you have identified the sufferings, then not only in order to prescribe, you really need to find out the source, the cause of the suffering. Otherwise, it will be like just treating the symptoms. If you have TB, there are concomitant illness or symptoms. You will have fever, you will lose appetite and all that. So if you just give pills to treat fever, that is not really tackling your illness. It is just treating the symptoms. But if you are able to identify the cause, what is the cause of all these symptoms? Only then one can hope for a full recovery. So that's why Buddha taught the second noble truth. The noble truth of, what is that noble truth of? Cause of suffering. And then, once we have identified the suffering and the cause of suffering, then there is this possibility that we can be cured, we can recover from whatever it is. There is this possibility. So that's why Buddha taught the third noble truth, the noble truth of cessation. Buddha said that there is an escape from all this suffering. One can be emancipated, one can be liberated from all this suffering. So that's when we talk about cessation. But then cessation does not come by just examining the illness and also just simply identifying the cause. But one needs to take, as the sick person needs to take the pills, take the medicine, we need to practice. We need to engage in the stages of path. Only then the emancipation will come. So that's what Buddha taught. The first teaching is all about Four Noble Truths. So especially when Buddha taught about the second noble truth, the cause of suffering, Buddha talked about two types of cause of suffering, the origin of suffering. So you have the ignorance on the one side, and then you have the delusions on the other hand. So, as we discussed before, why we are still circling in this, while we are still back to the, what is the term? Back to the start, is it? There is a back to the beginning, back to the, okay, anyway, yeah, so we are back to where we started. That is because that we fail to identify the cause of suffering. So the main cause of suffering, I mean, there are many causes. Why we suffer all this, of course, is the affliction. There are many types of affliction. Anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, all this. We talk about greed. How greed makes us unhappy. And jealousy, anger. That's one type of causes. And then we have the real one. That is the ignorance. It is all because of that. The root of all our suffering is the ignorance. We are ignorant of the reality of things. We are ignorant of how our identity, ignorant of the reality of our personal identity. We have this misconception that there is something solid and independent personal identity there, which is not dependent on other conditions and factors. Because of that, we have this strong self-grasping. Because of that grasping, we have attachment to ourselves. With that attachment, what happens is, if people are kind to us, good to us, we develop attachment to that. When people do not agree with us, people are not friendly with us, we develop aversion towards them. When those people who has nothing to do with us, we develop indifference. And through these three kinds of attitudes, we create karma. And then we circle in this samsara. So these are the two main causes. No, not the two main causes. So the root of our cause of our suffering is this ignorance. And then for the Mahayana practitioner, the main obstacle, the main impediment or the hindrance is this self-cherishing thought. Because of this self-grasping, we develop self-cherishing thought. Because of this self-cherishing thought, we cannot progress. Bodhicitta does not arise. To achieve enlightenment, bodhicitta is the must thing, one of the essential ingredients for Buddhahood. But that will not arise unless and until we are able to tackle self-cherishing thought and replace it with other cherishing attitude. So this teaching, the Lojong teaching that we are going to discuss in the coming weeks, is all about countering these two mindset. The view, this ignorant view of holding solid personal identity, and this self-cherishing thought. So as I mentioned earlier, this teaching is meant for advanced students. This is not for a newcomer, especially if you are coming from another religious background, especially if you are new to Buddhism. And we discussed earlier that, Buddhism is not easy for many people. It is unique in the sense that it made the person responsible, accountable. Whereas in other religion, everything is somebody's problem. Somebody made this, created this problem. And then, as long as you confess, you are absolved. So the only thing is you just need to pray. Whereas here in Buddhism it says that everything is your action. Everything is, I won't say your fault, but it is saying that everything, good things, it's you. Bad things, it's you. So it is difficult for many people. For example, if you say Holocaust is your problem, you did that, it is very harsh to hear that. The genocide in Tibet, you say it is Tibetans' fault, it is very harsh. This hurricane, was that Dorian in Bahamas, the whole area is flattened. If you say that it's your karma, it's very difficult. But if you have real understanding in karma, it is easy. Actually, you can utilize that understanding to develop resilience, to cope with the disaster. So when you have real understanding of this, so I think I mentioned earlier, the difference between the AIDS patient and the cancer patient is that one is able to accept. I was told by hospice volunteers, you all met Hui, my godmother, she is one of the volunteers. So it's very obvious because they do visit AIDS patients as well as cancer patients. So most of the cancer patients, they have this same question, why me? Especially if you are coming from another religious background, why me? I attended all Sunday sermons. I have been generous. I worked for charity. Why me? The AIDS patient, I was told that they are less likely to say this. For some of them, they know where they got the AIDS from. So they are more acceptable. So likewise, if we have this conviction, the understanding of karma at the level of conviction, whatever strikes us, it will be so easy to cope, to accept. That's why I mentioned that in Tibetan community, episode of depression is very low. In Tibetan community, we lose people. In family, People die. But very rare to see people in this prolonged grief. People don't go into depression. And the only explanation is that they always attribute that to my karma. Oh, what to do? It is my karma. So I must have done something in the past to experience this. That really helps. But here we are not just saying something which is not real, which is not true. We are not fantasizing anything. But from the Buddhist point of view, this is the case. Whatever we are now is the result of our past karma. What we are going to do will be the result of what we do now in this life. Nama kangje tade lula tu chima kangdu tade lela tus. You look at yourself, your situation, you know what you have done in the past. So in this case, here you are all sitting here, listening to Dharma, there is something to be rejoiced. Oh, we must have done something good, something virtue, to have this kind of opportunity to sit and listen to Dharma and to have the opportunity to practice. That's one way to rejoice of your own karma, of your good deeds. Chima kando tade lela tus. Wherever you're going to be, whatever you're going to be, or wherever you're going to be born, whatever condition you are going to be in the future, says that look at your actions, how you are living your life. If you are living your life according to Dharma, according to karma, abiding karma, then nothing to be worried about. There's guarantee that future will be good. So anyway, this teaching is all about taming our mind. That's why it is called Lojong. I won't go into detail. We have already talked about this, what Lojong means. So this particular text we are going to discuss in the coming weeks is called the Wheel Weapon Mind Training. So some translation called the Wheel of Sharp Weapon. So that one, the origin of the teaching is that, of course, all these Lojong practices come mostly from Shantidevas, from Shantideva. Because they are, in order to cultivate bodhicitta, so we have two approaches. One is from the Maitreya and Asanga, the lineage is from there, and then the other one is from Manjushri and Shantideva. So Shantideva is exchanging, the method of exchanging oneself with others. So these Lojongs are mainly part of that method. So this particular teaching, of course, it the Buddha, it came from Buddha, and then it passed down to Shantideva, from Shantideva to Dhammarakshita. Of course, I read here and there is some historical thing. So the Tibetan Lamas attribute or subscribe to the understanding that this particular text was composed by Dhammarakshita, one of the Nalinda Pandits, but is not one of the 17 Pandits that His Holiness has labeled. From Dhammarakshita, Adisha received this teaching from Dhammarakshita. And then when Lama Adisha came to Tibet, Lama Adisha passed it on to Drumdumba. And then from Drumdumba, then all that lineage followed. So one time this teaching was kind of extinct, extinct. How do you? The word from extinct, being extinct.
Hidden? Hidden?
Yeah. Anyway, it was disappearing. It was becoming extinct. Does it make sense? Becoming extinct. Yeah, extinct. And then another Lama started this, and then it came on. I mean, it continued. So that's what we are going to discuss. So this teaching is categorized under the teachings of Tantra. So I am not confident enough to talk the Tantra part, so I will leave it out. I will mainly focus on the Sutrayana. I won't go and touch on these tantric contents here. So the title, this is called The Wheel of Sharp Weapons, Effectively Striking the Heart of the Four. So now the question is, why is this practice called the Wheel of Sharp Weapon? So there is this legend that in ancient times there's this wheel which all that has these sharp pokes all around. So whoever yields and throws that, it actually goes around and kills all many enemies. I think it's we see in Indian Hindu TVs, they're depicting, I think it's with Krishna chakra. So it throws and it's like boomerang. It just go around and kill everybody and then comes back. So that's why it's called the wheel of sharp weapon. And then, of course, here when we talk about the four, the enemy, we are not talking about external enemy. We are talking about our internal enemy. The enemy, the worst enemy. In Shantideva's Chunjuk, Shantideva says that the destroying the external enemy is like killing the external enemy, like just poking a sword into a corpse. It is nothing. You are not considered as hero or courageous or brave. But if you want to be a hero, if you want to be called courageous and all that, is that you need to attack the internal enemy. An internal enemy we can understand. It doesn't appear, doesn't show as our enemy. It always pretends and abides within us as a good friend, all the time supporting us. If you find somebody not likable, your anger will go and hit him. That's it. And then jealousy, or you see somebody, you see they are having this nice one, all that. It fuels you. And we have been very, very loyal servant to that. Even though we call that my emotion, but actually we are possessed by them. We are owned by them. We just run here and there on their command. We run errands for them. So that's why we don't realize that these are enemies. And in the West, even anger, there are people, what is the term now? Promoting anger. And they say the anger is very good. Yeah, I have met many people. And one time, that was in Malaysia, one time in our class, there was this a guy from Bangladesh. So we were told, so the question was, what would happen if there is no aggression, no anger? Or is it, oh, we need anger, otherwise, it will be such a dull world. That's what they say. And then I was told that when they are working on this secular ethic text, so first they couldn't say that anger is bad. Because the reason is that, I was told, that if you tell a child that anger is bad, what will happen is child will think that when they get angry, I am bad. So it will destroy their self-esteem. Self-esteem is so so precious over here, isn't it? Yeah. So they were stuck with that because there was already this emotional, what was that? Emotional learning. What is that? There's something, some cause. So they will just only acknowledge this is anger, but they are short of saying that it is not good to have anger. So the one who was the main person in doing the textbook, so he was like having real difficulty because he wanted to make it the Buddhist, coming from the Buddhist idea and anger, he wanted to show that it is not a good thing. But he was stuck there because there was so much resistance. But eventually there was one person in that emotional learning, something that emotional learning something is a course. So it is popular in schools. So they have introduced that. So now they have introduced C. Social and emotional learning or something. SEL, yes. Social emotional learning or something, yeah. Now it is called C. Social emotional education or ethic or something. So anyway, eventually, the main person who is well respected by all these academics or educationists. So when she saw the drop, she was so pleased. She said, this is so good. This is what we need to teach our kids. And she endorsed it. Because she is well respected, all the resistance diminished, went down. And he was successful. He was able to include that in the C learning. Yeah, C learning. Yeah. So that's what I was saying that we have difficulty identifying our real enemy. So we always point to the other person. He hurt me, he caused me, he made me this and he made me that. But actually when you really think of that, it is you. It is your anger inside that has spoiled your day. Normally we say, oh, he spoiled my day. She spoiled my day. But is it really that person who spoiled your day? But it is you. Your anger that spoiled your day. If you hear somebody say nasty things, it is up to you whether you want to spoil your day or not. It is how you respond. If you obey your anger, the main boss inside, and follow the instructions, then of course, then you will say something else and then a quarrel, argument will erupt, and that's it. Whole day you are unhappy. Whereas if you say, hey, anger, I had enough, I don't want to listen to you. It is okay, I can understand he or she is angry, but I'm not going to respond in an angry way. If you say that, first of all, the other person will also calm down. And then your peace of mind, you are able to retain that peace of mind. and your day is not spoiled. So we normally say, oh, she spoiled my day, he spoiled my day. That is not true. So this is all because that we are unable to identify the actual foe, actual enemy. So here, what this wheel of sharp weapon is targeting at is the two enemies, what is called the spiritual enemy. So the first one is the view of a real personal identity, and then the self-cherishing attitude. We know the self-cherishing attitude is our enemy. I mentioned this before. This is the attitude that actually is responsible for almost all our problems, almost all our suffering, almost the impediment to all our noble deeds. We want to help others, but self-cherishing thoughts us, prevent us. You want to do charity work, it stopped us. I want to help somebody, but then it's, oh, I have something else on. Or it is my off day. Or people are suffering. I want to give. You want to give, but then if I give money, I don't have much left. I need this, I need that, I cannot give away. I cannot go there because I have something else on. This is all because of self-cherishing. If we are able to replace that with other cherishing thought, it would be completely different. The first opportunity we will run, because all this, what I have planned, does not matter. That does not come in between. You can go and do all these noble deeds. At the moment, we know that these are noble deeds. We know that we want to do it. But because of this self-cherishing attitude, we cannot do it. We cannot do it. So if we have this other cherishing attitude instead, then wonderful. That really brings meaning in our life. We will be all the time helping others, doing noble, engaging in noble deeds, doing virtue all the time. So, this text is it is meant to help us replace this self-cherishing attitude with self-cherishing attitude with other cherishing attitude. So let's see whether it works for us or not. It has worked for the great practitioners in the past. But let's see whether it works for us or not. We see that after we have a break. Yeah. There is Carolyn. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Okay, so how is everybody finding the new place? So we have Dinah and David to thank for, and I'm very comfortable on this sofa, and the table and everything fits well. So it was all because of their kindness. So thank you very much, thank you. So otherwise, yeah, this wouldn't be possible. Yeah. Hope we won't drag this on and on. Yeah, I really hope we find our own place soon, so that, we won't inconvenience you too long. Yeah. Okay. So now the homage. He says, I bow down to the great wrathful one, Yamentaka. So I have two versions of the translation. So I find that some stanzas, the other book is better. In other cases, the other is better. So every now and then I will try to read from both, so that when others are more are clearer. So to teach this kind of text, especially to Westerners or foreigners, may I say, it is a bit challenging. Why do I say that? If I teach to Tibetans, I just have to read the text and then I just have to explain. Because Tibetan, I don't know whether it's similar to English. Tibetan, even you can speak Tibetan, even you can read Tibetan, but it doesn't mean that you understand, especially those are in stanzas. So for a person to explain this is already great. So you just read and explain what it means, that's it. But to foreigners, now that these are already translated, so if you just leave to that, it's like, we already have this. Whatever you said is here. So we don't really need to come to class, isn't it? So that's what happens. So that's why those geshes teaching in APMT centers. So many of the geshes, they don't speak English. So they have to rely on. So they don't have this understanding that there is already a translated version. So when they teach, let's say, Shantideva's text, so they are really putting effort to explain this line. At the end of that, it's already there. They said that there's nothing new you said. We already have it. So I met people said that it's just reading from here. So I had to explain. It is such a feat for them to be able to even explain and understand that meaning. Because all these Tibetan stanzas are not easy to understand. There are some stanzas really you don't understand unless you have a commentary. So for Lama to just being able to explain that is already a big feat. So I will try to elaborate as much as I can, but some of the stanzas, there's nothing really to elaborate. So you may find me like, oh, he's just reading. Yeah, that's it, I'm reading. Yeah. Okay, so I think you are familiar with every text. We see that there is a homage. There is a reason for that. Why do you have homage? Sometimes it will be a stanza, sometimes just a one-liner. So all this is mainly to remove any obstacles in their composition. So when they are starting to compose a text, so there will be all kinds of obstacles. You will encounter all kinds of hindrance. So they will do this homage so that your composition, your writing will see an end, see the completion. So that's why. So we the composers they make homage to different deities, but here it is made to Yamentaka. So this already shows that this text belongs to Tantrayana. So we have this great wrathful one, Yamentaka. So I think everybody is familiar with who Yamentaka is. Yamentaka is the wrathful aspects of Manjushri. it is said that there are two kind of enemies or impediments or obstacles to our spiritual practice. The main one is the ignorance. If we have ignorance, or as long as we have this ignorance, we are not going to progress that much, that high on our spiritual journey. Because for instance, the Mahayana goal is to achieve enlightenment. So in order to achieve enlightenment, you need to practice the union of method and wisdom. So, of course, bodhicitta is the method aspect and one can develop that. But when it comes to gaining insight, the wisdom aspects of the insight, one has to eliminate this ignorance. So because of that, ignorance plays very main obstacles to our spiritual practice. So in order to eliminate that, we have the Manjushri not in a wrathful form. And then another one is what is called the death, the body. So in order to practice, we need to live. So death is our enemy in that context. So there is this belief that there is someone called the Yama somewhere down there, always looking for opportunity to bring people, basically take lives of human beings or people or living beings. So if our lives were taken, then of course we cannot practice. So in order to terminate that, in order to counter that, so we have the wrathful form of Manjushri, which is Yamantaka. So Yamantaka literally means the terminator of Yama, the death, Lord of Death, or whatever you call that. So that's the homage. And now let's dive into the actual one. So the first few stanza is more like a general instruction, general introduction. So here it says, I want to read the Tibetan as well. Kunjo sungla chaze lo, tawunela abe chunja kolo shejawa, to jimbo shinji shela chaze los. So the first line says, Zendu nasu maja juwa na, menji dumra levar zejurjang, maja sona gawar menjurki, zendu chuji maja chowa tar. Bawo korwe nasu juba na, tigi peji dumra zejurjang, bawo dani chawa menjurki, tunye nasu semba chowa yins. So in the translation it says, when the peacocks roam the jungle of virulent poison, the flocks take no delight in gardens of medicinal plants, no matter how beautiful they may be, for peacocks thrive on the essence of virulent poison. So let's imagine we are in a garden, very nice garden, lots of unique flowers, so pretty. And who doesn't love to walk and wander in that kind of park, that kind of garden? Everybody loves. I love to walk in garden. But it says the peacock. If you put a peacock, so this is a legend, Tibetan legend, I don't know whether it's true or not. Is it true that peacocks live or eats or feeds on poison? Is it the fact?
We have to find out.
Yeah, we don't know, yeah? We can ask Uncle Google later, yeah. So anyway, so it says that If you let a peacock roam in a normal garden, they don't find enjoyment. They don't like. But instead, if you let them roam or walk, wander in a jungle of virulent poison, they like it. They enjoy more to be in a poisonous jungle rather than a pretty, beautiful, flower-filled garden. No matter how pretty, how beautiful that garden is, it does not attract peacock. The reason is because the peacocks thrive on the essence of virulent poison. So that's the analogy. And likewise, we were saying, when the heroes roam the jungle of cyclic existence, they do not become attached to the garden of happiness and prosperity, no matter how beautiful it may be, for the heroes thrive in the jungle. So here, when we talk about heroes, we are not talking about Avengers. We are not talking about Superman and all this. Here we are talking about Bodhisattvas. So Bodhisattvas are likened to heroes because they sacrifice their own well-being. They work for other people, sentient beings. All the time they are committed in helping sentient beings at the expense of their own happiness and joy. So because of that, they are called heroes. So we all have this understanding that Bodhisattvas, they come back to samsara, even though they can choose not to come. They already have this freedom, but they still comes back. They still knowingly that to be born back in existence, there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of sufferings, there are a lot of pains, but they still come back because they are only concerned of helping people. So when they come back to samsara, they are not attached to all the pleasures of the existence. Instead, they're saying that they will endure any hardship just to help sentient beings. So this we can see from the example of His Holiness. There's no dispute that His Holiness is a manifestation of Chenrezig. And Tibetans believe that Chenrezig has taken numerous forms to help Tibetan people. The story is that one time the land of Tibet, the Tibetan people, really what is called barbaric, that even the Bodhisattvas, among the Bodhisattvas, no other Bodhisattvas dare to take the challenge, dare to go and help Tibetan people. But only Avalokiteshvara was the brave one who, amongst other Bodhisattvas, volunteered to go and help Tibetan people, to subdue Tibetans. So that's why we have this special affinity with Chenrezig. So from all these monarchs from those days, Tibet are ruled by emperors and kings, and from scholars to translators, and then of course from the lineage, the Dalai Lama lineage, all this. So Avalokiteshvara has come back again and again. And we know that once you are in there, because you have to come as an ordinary being, you are bound by all these ordinary sufferings. that the ordinary people experience. Sometimes Tibetan people say that, how come His Holiness is already Avalokiteshvara? How come he gets sick? How come he have this and this? He does this and that. Of course, His Holiness has come as an ordinary person. So all that, whatever is part and parcel of the ordinary person, it is also part of, His Holiness has to go through. So even though knowing that, there's a lot of challenges, but they still come back.
But if it's karma,
Mm.
if the sickness comes from karma,
Mm.
what does it say?
No, that's why, of course, there is karma there. There is karma there. But let's put it this way. So we later we will cover on this. So when His Holiness and all these birds are not really like the ordinary how we are born. So when we are born, we need the karma and that whatever that what we call that moisturizing that karma. We need to have these three things, the grasping and all that. Actually, it's just a delusion there. But these bodhisattvas, when they are born, they are not born by the force of these delusions, but it is because of the compassion. So compassion act as what do you call? Act as that activating the karma. So that's how they are born in. So once they are there, they still have karma. They still have karma. Even we say that like arhats, even though they are liberated, but there are many karmas there, still karmas there. But because they have overcome the delusions, especially the self-grasping, so there's nothing to bring that karma to fruition. So that's why, even though karma is there, so like those bodhisattvas, they still have karma. They are not liberated, they haven't really achieved enlightenment. There's karma there. But in order to bring this karma, they can use other means to bring those up. Does that answer?
That's because of our karma. Our karma of so it's manifesting, but our karma that is affecting. If we follow what he said, then he will have everything. We will not see him.
Yeah,
Is it our karma that is affecting his mental as well?
I don't know for sure, but that is also a good explanation. That all this, so that's one way to look at things. Whatever is going through is all manifestation. All manifestation. And it's all strongly related to our karma. So if we have karma, let's say, not to have His Holiness live long, then His Holiness will manifest into what we call the parinirvana and all that. Yes?
That's kind of what I was going to say. It sort of depends on the karma of like the students and stuff like that. Doesn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely a role, or what is called collective karma, role of collective karma. So like for Tibetans, all that unfortunate incidents, all these are not one person's karma. It is a collective karma, we call it, collective karma. So of course, our karma has influence to His Holiness' health and all that. So that's why we all the time do prayers so that we can create karma, so that His Holiness can live long. So main point of this is to show how great the bodhisattvas are, because of their because they successfully replace this self-cherishing thought with other cherishing thought. So they are not concerned by their own problems and sufferings as long as they are service to others. They do not become attached to the garden of happiness and prosperity, no matter how beautiful it may be, for heroes thrive in the jungle. So why the peacock? Why is Bodhisattva likened to peacock? So there are several similarities. So the first, peacocks feed on poison. That is the legend. That is the story. So likewise, Bodhisattvas feed on mental poisons of the afflictions. So Bodhisattvas, even though all these afflictions, like attachment, even the non-virtuous actions, we are supposed to abandon them, supposed not to engage in these negative actions. But Bodhisattvas, when they see benefit in doing that, when they see that it is more beneficial to others, they will engage. So we have the story of one story of Shakyamuni's life story before Shakyamuni Buddha became Buddha. The story goes on like this. So one time Shakyamuni Buddha was accompanying, let's not say Shakyamuni Buddha, so the person who became Shakyamuni Buddha. So one time was born as a sailor, so traveling with a group of people. And then they realized that the captain of the ship was planning to kill all that people on board, murder all that. So the Shakyamuni's previous birth, or previous, how do you put it? Incarnation, previous, that Bodhisattva. So at that time, I don't know whether it's Bodhisattva or not. So anyway, so that person, there was no other option. The only option is to kill. Only option is to kill that captain in order to save the lives of all the sailors. So he did it. So that's an example. So when Bodhisattvas, actual Bodhisattvas, yes.
Is that an example of how someone can get bad karma if they're super advanced?
Sorry?
So, like in that instance, like you would still have to kill someone, so that possibly like give advanced practitioner bad karma, which would make them sick later on, etc.
No, that one, even though it creates a negative karma, but it's not complete. It's not a complete action, because in order to complete a negative action or a positive action, you need to have all these four things come together. So one of them is the motivation. But in this case, the motivation is to help others, not to harm others. It is not triggered by any of these afflictions. It's more of a compassion. So that's why it makes difference.
So the action will be pure.
Actions are different. It's lighter.
It was done out of wisdom.
Of course, you need the wisdom to discern.
Different than out of anger.
Yes. Wisdom is, you need the wisdom, because without the wisdom, you won't be able to discern whether your action is going to benefit or not. You think there is benefit, but then, it may not. So wisdom helps. So anyway, so that's what do. Bodhisattvas, when they feel that there's only one option in order to help sentient beings, and that option, if it is happened to be engaging in negative actions, they would do that. Because they are able to use these negative actions in their progress, to help them progress in their practice. Even though they are engaging in negative actions, because of their motivation, it becomes part of their practice, which helps them to progress on their spiritual journey. So that's why it is like the peacocks. As peacocks feed on poison, even though poison are bad, but they are able to survive on that. They are able to thrive on it. So likewise, bodhisattvas, when time comes, they are able to utilize the negative actions towards their spiritual goal. Another similarity is that peacocks use the poison to maintain their bodies of color and brilliance and feathers. So there is this saying that why peacocks, the feathers are so pretty, so brilliant, so radiant, and all this is all because of the consumption of poison. That is the story. So likewise, so I already covered that. Likewise, bodhisattvas, they are able to utilize all these negative actions like delusions, attachment, all this towards furthering their spiritual practice. And then you see this, there is this is called crest, is it? So here you have these 5 strands of feather here. So peacock, because peacock have these 5 feathers, it says that it represents the bodhisattvas fivefold. As peacocks have these 5 feathers on the crest, but bodhisattvas path also are fivefold. You have these 5 stages of path. And then, who doesn't like to look at peacock? Whenever there's peacock, we always stop and hope that they will display their beauty, their feather. So I said, peacock attracts people. Peacock makes people happy and calm. Likewise, when people see bodhisattvas, it appeals to people and bring them joy and happiness. So this one also, one very strong example is like His Holiness. Whoever goes and meet His Holiness, nobody comes out unhappy. Everybody have a tremendous experience. Everybody, when you ask, is like completely, their experience is like completely out of this world. Never ever there was any incident where he said, oh, I went to have an audience and now I'm so unhappy after that. No. So that's what the bodhisattvas are capable of. So then the conclusion is, Tijir tiki tangdo lembayi, tarme wangi tula kiwayin, tunge tangdo lembe sembate, pavir toki tangdo tewayins. Therefore, it is due to covetous that persons avidly pursue their own happiness and so come to suffer. And it is due to the heroism that bodhisattvas, willingly taking the suffering of others onto themselves, are always happy. So this is showing the difference, stark difference between a person who is only concerned about himself or herself, a person who is self-centered, who has this self-centered attitude. So those people are labeled as covetous because they don't have this big heart to work for others, to help others, to let go of your own happiness. So you are all the time concerned with your own happiness and you don't care for others. So that's why they say that they are like cowards. And because that they pursue their own happiness, they suffer. That's us. We have been doing this all the time. Life after life, we are only concerned about our own benefit. When there is one, let's say, one dish left, we will fight for it. We will say, oh, I will stay hungry, oh, you have it. Hardly we say that, I must go and get it first. If there are free things they are giving, we will be queuing and fighting for it. This is our nature. We could have eaten a simpler meal and used the balance to feed a hungry person, but we don't do that. So all this shows that, because of this habit of pursuing our own goals and happiness, we suffer. So bodhisattvas, even Buddhas, at the beginning, they are like us. They are flawed. They also experience all kinds of sufferings. But now they are up there in the merit field. We revere them. We respect them. We prostrate to them. It is all because of getting rid of this self-cherishing attitude. All because of getting rid of this egocentric mindset. And all because of working towards developing this self-cherishing attitude. Because of that, now they are up there and we are still down here. So that's what showing the contrast between bodhisattvas' action and ordinary persons' actions. So it is due to heroism that bodhisattvas, willingly taking the suffering of others onto themselves, are always happy. So not this lifetime, bodhisattvas, if you are bodhisattvas, and if you really are able to develop this self-cherishing thought, then not only in this life you will be happy, but life after life you will be happy. So, in another word, bodhisattvas are always happy. Always happy. So happiness and suffering is a mindset. When you see meaning in what you are doing, you don't see it as suffering. Remember the Friedrich Nietzsche? He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. When you have a purpose, when you have a goal, when you have a meaning in life, then whatever you are doing, you don't see it as a suffering or a chore or duty. You will engage in that particular action with joy. And then, you will be in flow. Did I tell you one time how I experienced flow? F-L-O, the flow. That is Chick Zilhamme's theory. Flow is when you are engrossed in something you really enjoy and you lose track. You lose track of time. That's when you say you are in a flow. So that happened to me once. But unfortunately, there was nothing really worthwhile, nothing a bodhisattva's action, nothing of a bodhisattva's action, nothing sort of that. There was this software where you can draw, I forgot the name now. You can do all this architectural drawing. And I like to do, this architectural drawing. So that was in Malaysia. So I took out something to make a cook for my dinner. So it came from freezer. I put in the sink and I was going to cook. And then I sat there and started to do work on this stuff. And when I remembered about cooking, it was already 10:30. Like 3 hours I was so engrossed in that and I completely forgot about the cooking. By the time I remembered, it's too late to cook. But I wasn't hungry. So that is called flow. So when you really see the purpose and meaning in what you are doing, then you will be in constant flow. So if you really see the benefit in practicing, if you really see, let's say if you wanted to do a particular practice, if you really see the benefit there and if you find meaning in there, you will have no trouble. You can go on for hours and hours. So that's what bodhisattvas are. When it comes to helping other people, they are like finding a treasure. How we react to finding a treasure. Suddenly, if we encounter $1 million somewhere there, we will be so happy, isn't it? So likewise, bodhisattva, whenever there is opportunity to benefit and help sentient beings, it is like finding a treasure. They really, maybe they literally jump up and down. Okay, I think we stop here. It's already time, and then we will continue. So what is the takeaway from this? Why are bodhisattvas able to do that? Why we are not? What do you think? Ignorance, yeah. Definitely ignorance. Mm-hmm. That's an excuse. That's an excuse.
Well, I think it really gets back to setting intent.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start setting intent, and if you set intent for your path, then it just makes that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then you have that motivation.
Yes, of course, motivation plays a huge role. But mainly why bodhisattvas are able to do is, they are able to overcome this self-cherishing attitude. We are not. We are still ruled by this self-cherishing thought. Imagine whatever we do, check, examine yourself, your action. There is always self-cherishing there, which has motivated this, which has triggered this, which has started this. So as long as the stronger our self-cherishing is, we are less likely to be able to act like bodhisattva. So the point is that we should work on reducing this self-cherishing thought. So that's the takeaway. And next week, come back and don't tell me that you have given everything.
Yes, every day we have to check whether we are doing the self-cherish or not, checking every minute.
Yes, yes.
Gradually then we will come in the center. Otherwise,
yes, yes. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
So can I just get a little clarification on what you mean by like self-cherishing? So when you're saying that, I'm thinking it's like you like yourself, so you don't want to change yourself.
So self-cherishing those, whatever we do, it's all for me. I am the most important. You know, that's why you see, if there are, that's the example I gave, when there's only 1 foot left, even though there are 5 people there, you want to get it for yourself, because I am so important, they are not important. But bodhisattvas, they are more important than me. Since there are other people who need it, okay, please have it. I will be okay.
It's like a narcissistic thing.
Okay.
You should say the dedication prayers beginning with the short mandala offering first verse on page 4, and then concluding prayers on page 6. Saji Puki Choje Mendo Dhamma Deja Nenge Nyende Nyemba